Good morning, my name is Kirsty Dignam and I'm here to look at the weekly energies for today on the 11th of September. There's some really interesting sensations around at the moment, and I was really tempted this morning to research before this video, which is out of character for me. Really tempted to start to look into what is going on with the new moon, I think this week in Virgo, to really investigate other reports from people that I hold in great esteem. And something stopped me. I stopped me because it feels really poignant this week to sense into where we're at with the information that we're receiving, and to then seek out confirmation if that's what we're actually looking for. Ultimately, when we feel something, ultimately when we sense a message or any wisdom from our body or our surroundings, when we seek out a reflection of that, what we're looking for is to go, that's why I'm feeling what I'm feeling. It feels really important this week to actually feel it, to actually feel into what we're feeling before we find reason for it. I'm a great advocate of understanding the messages of our body, of listening to the stories that need to be told. However, if that gets out of balance, if that's used as a way to avoid feeling, it can really interfere with the feedback process that is occurring, not only with yourself, with others, and with the situation outside. If we find excuses for something, I'm feeling this way because of this, this, and this. I'm feeling, or I acted that way because of this, this, and this. There can be a very fine line into how much responsibility we take on as our own. And ultimately that could be the other way as well, right? If we're not aware of our own energy, we can take on board the views, the opinions, the vibrations of others as our own when they may not be. This video included, so it either resonates or it doesn't. This week it feels like the biggest emphasis is to know thyself. It feels like with the Virgo new moon, we have the Hermit in the Tarot, we have the Queen of Pentacles, we have the Ten of Pentacles, to really look at how grounded we are in our own vision, not only for the world, but ourselves also. I've had quite a few surprises this week. I've had quite a few people surprised at the fact that I get very nervous, that I get quite anxious and frightened when I do videos or when I teach, when I go into the space of the unknown, because I don't know either. And, I get a lot of people quite surprised at that. Whereas I thought it was blatantly obvious because that's how I feel, right? And this week it really feels quite exciting actually, and interesting to look at how you are being seen in regards to what you actually feel, and to ensure that they're in alignment, and the whole point of having each other in our lives is to have that reflection that we might not be able to see. So I've been really grateful for that this week, really grateful for compliments, really grateful for recognizing where I can't always accept them and why, and how I doubt their authenticity, but also that I doubt it because it's not how I feel about myself. Right? So beautiful medicine there to really look at that. The other thing I've noticed this week, I thought, again, giving it reasons, I thought, right, perimenopausal. I thought going into cronehood, I thought, wow, I know Jupiter went backwards and Jupiter's in my chart and to explain this maturity. You're giggling, well, like final maturity, acceptance of maturity. This just feeling generally balanced and chilled. Still up and down with life, but this foundational energy that I've come to recognise as my own over the last few weeks. And the way that I did that is when it was actually nearly taken, or I nearly gave that away in my reactions. I clung onto it and I clung onto it as if it was outside of me. And when I realised that piece was actually me, it just, really noticing a different side of my own perception of myself. Which brings me on to the cards that I'm going to use. Intention first. This morning when I was thinking about the reading, I try not to get too bogged under with what is going on or other people's opinions before I do a reading, or to try and figure things out, because I try and be as clear as possible. And as the years go on, that feels more like an honour, a privilege in whatever I offer, be that teaching, healing, readings, to be as clear as possible, so whatever comes through needs to come through. And this morning I really felt into that, and there was nothing, absolutely nothing, and it was just glorious. And I doubted it. I did doubt it, hence the thinking about looking outside of myself. And that feels like some of the energy this week, as we recognise how grounded we are and where we may need to come back into our own wisdom. And as a result, my camera on my computer kept switching off and on. And it nearly got to the point where I had to use an old camera, an old vision, right? An old way of seeing myself. I got a few wires, the light keeps coming off and on, and the focus keeps adjusting, which feels quite relevant this week. You know, when we're seeing from a place that is less illuminated, it is going to affect our focus. So really looking at how we can adjust the light within us and the impact that has on what we see this week. And whether or not we end up going back to old ways of perceiving things. And when my camera did do that, it was very grainy. It wasn't very clear at all. It wasn't pleasant to look at, but also necessary for the messages, right? Anyway, I decided not to look outside of myself, and I really felt into the reading, and all that felt important this week with the new moon and the energies is to set an intention, not an expectation. And that feels like it needs to be quite clear. There's a big difference between an intention and an expectation. An intention is what you are hoping to gain from that. An expectation is exactly how it needs to come through. Really recognising that this week. Because when we set the intention, when we really feel into the inner tension within us, you know, it's not a relationship that we want, it's that feeling of love. So that expectation is gone. It's not, you know, a particular job as such, it's that feeling of security. So that expectation is gone. And what you're doing is sending out that message to yourself as well, how you want to feel, rather than linking it to a particular scenario. And that really feels like a key this week when it comes to how grounded our manifestations actually are. You know, Queen of Pentacles, how nurturing we are with what it is we are trying to achieve. You know, the Ten of Pentacles, how willing we are to share that. How willing we are to open up to that collaboration with others around us and the universe. I had a lifelong dream of running retreats and teachings from a field. And the older I get, the more I'm realising that this is too much for one person. And the expectation of doing this in the way that I thought it was going to be is slowly starting to dissolve, and as a result I feel calm. I feel as if it's not all down to me. And this week, if we can let go of those expectations on ourselves as well, and how we perceive ourselves and what we believe we are here to do and how we are here to do it, we may just be pleasantly surprised of the real grounded, earthy nature of being a human, and that coming through in the situations that we're in, so that we don't take on things that aren't ours, but equally so that we don't project them onto others. A quick drink of my tea. The other thing that did come through today were the deck of cards that I am going to use, and it is the Legacy of the Divine Tarot by Cairo Marchetti. What I find really interesting about this deck straight off is that the box is called Legacy of the Divine Tarot, but the book is called Gateway to the Divine Tarot. You know, that whole emphasis of the external environment not quite tallying up with the directions inside. It really feels like taking time to use our internal emotions and sensations this week to be the portals, the very gateway to the legacy of the divine within us, okay, in order to have that in our lives, to look at what it is we are leaving behind. What is our legacy? And that really feels like key this week. What is it we are choosing to focus on? What is it we are choosing to leave behind as a story? What is it we are choosing to take forward as the narrative? Taking things out of the box, having a good look at the messages that we make conveniently fit. I could sense that with what I just said. And the more genuine in our core, and to do so with humility. So yes, I was talking about the box and the divine legacy, and there was an emphasis there absolutely of a message, but the difference being I could feel that some of that I'd used to fit the narrative that I was sharing. There's no judgment there, but there's going to be a real difference this week between what we say and what we feel, and to recognise there needs to be more of a bridge between the two. And the way to do that, it feels like to keep it simple. It feels like to speak our truth, to be authentic in the vision that we see of ourselves and each other, and to really sense into the light that is needed in order to move us forward. It's that Virgo new moon, right? It doesn't feel as if it's new aspects. It feels as if it's fine-tuning, honing in on what we already know. In the Hermit card with the Virgo, we have the star, and it's squashed into the lantern. And for me, the Virgo energy, having a Virgo moon and a lot of Virgo in my chart, has always come up with the emphasis of taking such vast information, fine-tuning it, condensing it to just have enough to take the next steps forward. It's that expectation and intention thing. We can have this huge plan of where we want to be and what it is we want in life, but we still need to bring it back to the steps that are in front of us. Okay, that whole chop wood, carry water, that, okay, what am I going to do about this information? What legacy am I leaving behind in my very actions? Every single one of them. And this week there's going to be a real emphasis on respecting that even the actions we didn't think were applicable are. Okay, right, so on that note, it does feel as if my chest feels as if, when you get to higher altitudes, it can be a little bit harder to breathe. Really taking some time this week, I want to say this morning as well, on the Monday, to really sense into the breath, to ensure that it is coming all the way down into the body, to ensure that we are releasing what no longer serves us into the earth with our breath in order to make space for that new to come in. What I sense is, when you do shallow breathing from that fight or flight type energy, I sense that, and I sense the opportunity now to take deeper lymphatic healing breaths, but that the muscles aren't used to it. So it's going to take a while to transition into that new way of being. Now it's new, but it isn't. We've always, fight or flight has been part of the human condition, but it has really ramped up over the last few years to the point where we're almost as a species unable to discern between true danger and anxiety, depression, things like that. So this week, recognizing we are returning to a state of understanding these necessary reactions within us and almost compartmentalizing them to be able to say that is because of this, but not getting too caught up in that and just always bringing it back to the breath. We are going to be more aware and have more clarity over what we're feeling and why, and that can really lead us to the temptation of over-explaining our situation and where we are, and the emphasis is to really fine-tune that and just bring it back to the breath and to the understanding that we all have. And it really is that simple. Okay. So with that beautiful, simple energy, to recognise that actually our vibration is getting higher. Our vibration is getting higher. That's that sensation of walking up mountains. Our vibration is getting higher, and that can feel a little bit, when our vibration gets higher, it gets faster. When it gets faster, we naturally assume, our nervous system naturally assumes that we're in danger because everything's picking up. Recognising that this is just becoming a little bit adapted into our system and giving ourselves time to integrate that this week. The Magician. Yeah. Being that conduit of all these forces that are actually coming down into the body, taking time, allowing the body to connect to the earth as well, as above, so below, right? So we can have all these downloads, whatever you want to call them, but how we're caring for our body as the vessel in order to hold space for them. It's really going to be important, because the sense of fear almost seems to be coming from our inability to steward our body. And that can be through explaining, over-explaining, not explaining, over-explaining. There's a difference. Over-explaining how we feel rather than feeling. That can come from avoiding how we feel. That can come from taking the advice of someone else over our own. Yeah, again, this video included. Really, really important this week to recognise it is down to us to hold space for our physical vessel and what is occurring. It's going to be far more empowering as a result to recognise that the magic came from you and not elsewhere. Okay, so I see a lot of individuals not recognising their healing power. They've always known. Not recognising their spirituality. They've always known. Being called to step more into that as a result of circumstances close to them. I see a lot of that happening this week. The Ace of Cups. A lot of initiations. Initiations and opening of the heart, opening of that chest area, opening of the love that we are. And that only comes by accepting all aspects of ourselves. It doesn't matter if you call it healing or love. That's what I feel. It really doesn't matter if you call it spirituality or love. It really doesn't matter if you call it creativity or love. The name doesn't matter, it's the feeling. And, if we get too caught up in the name and we have certain views of that, we can actually stop that love from flowing through. If we get too caught up in the word spiritual or healing or whatever, we can push that away, that part of ourselves away, and what we're doing is actually pushing away that flow of that natural love, that natural energy of being who we are. Okay. And there are going to be initiations this week where we can see that. How are you going to know the light to take forward if you don't recognise the light that you are? It's really that simple. Okay. And don't even start me on guiding others if we cannot guide ourselves. Okay. There's a real stern, tough love, truthful aspect to this week. And we can almost want to guard our hearts from that. But if we feel into the energy that it's coming from, really truly feel into the energy, not our stories about it, not our reactions to it, but feel into the energy of where that's coming from. When you hear those things that you've always known but you don't want to acknowledge. So like I used to smoke really heavy. And I knew that if I wanted my health to take the next step, I knew if I wanted to take the healing to the next level, it really counted on my ability to breathe, and that smoking was standing in the way of that. And I needed that lesson, that knowing, that repetitive message over and over and over for quite a while. And then something just happened. There was that acceptance where I could really feel where these messages were coming from, and they weren't coming from a you can't do this or you can't do that, or I used to come out with every excuse in the book. I'd been smoking in other lifetimes, it was tobacco, it was plant medicine, it was da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It grounded me, and it did all these things, but it also left me out of breath. It also left me feeling very poorly, and it also inhibited my physical health. Now, that's a personal experience. I'm not suggesting everyone give up smoking. That has to be your choice. What I'm saying is there comes a time when the same message is spoken over and over and over. And if we can get past how we feel about that message and really go into where it's coming from, there becomes this flow of truth. And it's much easier to act. From there, it's more like an intention. We have the hammer at the bottom of the pack. It becomes that light that guides us forward. We can want, again, going back to the smoking analogy, we can want to give up smoking over and over and over. We can try 1,000,001 times. But unless we actually truly have that light in us, where we don't fight what it is we want, it can become an ongoing struggle, right? And this week we're really going to be guided to look at that in regards to our health, in regards to routines that we're trying to bring back, self-care, caring for the body, work, our connection here, what it is we're trying to achieve, to really feel into any messages that have continually come up, and to really feel into the deeper essence behind it. I've been gifted a opportunity to undergo the knife again, surgery-wise, for my own womb space, and I've been advised that that may cause more problems, and I've been also advised to go on hormone replacement therapy. And this isn't an open debate, this isn't a judgment of what you're doing or what's best, because the truth is, I don't know what's best for you, only you do, and that's going to take time and discovery from your own physical needs, emotionally, spiritually, whatever. But the last few days I've really felt into it, and my body doesn't want it. Not my head, my body doesn't want it. So I've invested in a few alternative therapies, and I've got a few tools under my belt that I know I need to use more. And there's this ongoing message in my mind, and it's the belief in myself and my own ability to connect to my body's needs and provide that. And, you know, my body needs to feel safe in that and needs to trust me. So how do I do that? I do that through my actions. So this week, really listening to any repetitive messages that are coming up, going one step further, turning the page of this narrative to see what's actually beyond it, going that one step further. What is the underlying message here? Really feeling into whatever truth is trying to come up for you for the light that it is. It might be difficult. It might flicker off and on like my camera. You might be tempted to go back to old visions and see things differently. Like, you know, I did for many, many decades with smoking. Having compassion with yourself there, knowing that you can only receive it at the level that you are ready to receive, but also being a bit more open to this truth, your truth, that wants to come through in these reflected messages around you. I really feel that. I really feel that in my chest. I almost feel like a indigestion type sensation where I've taken all this information from everywhere else, crammed it in so that I can't feel what's actually going on in here. Take some time this week, find a safe environment to do that, and support if you need it as well, either from yourself or from someone else, and just find your truth this week and embody that. By doing so, the intention becomes much stronger. By doing so, it's not all about the expectation. It's not all about, I must do this, this and this. It's about this guiding light, this force within you that knows that's part of your alignment. And it could be really simple things. It could be something you've been guided to do for ages that could be fun. It can be fun too, but it can be life-changing. What I hear is like the Mothman prophecies, the butterfly, you know, in different countries, and the butterfly effect. That's what I hear. It could be something really small, really, really small, that could change everything. Now that one wants to come out as the hermit. The hermit wants to come out again. Okay, so we're going to use the hermit as the guiding light this week, and we're going to start looking into the energies because we're 23 minutes in. We have the Queen of Coins, again, that energy that we're facing this week. What I love about this deck, even though the Queen of Pentacles, the Queen of Coins, is very much linked to the earth element, as is Virgo, look at the light from the third eye. When we do the Moon Eye Key rites, the energy that we place into the third eye is the wisdom to know that our needs are met based on how we see the world. Okay, based on the fact that how we choose to see the world is how we create the world, and in doing so, that's how our needs are met. This week we're really going to be made aware of that. We're really going to be made aware of the need to ground in the vision that we have for ourselves, for each other, and for the earth. And to align to that, and to be honest with ourselves where we may not quite be living in the truth of that, and to adjust accordingly. So, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 2 for Saturday, Sunday, overall. So I wanted to switch off. When I pulled the cards out for the week, I wanted to switch off, and there's a sense of that this week. There's a sense of just wanting to. It's always at the moment where we feel like we can't go on. we end up doing that transition from personal experience, whether it's midwifery, whether it's somebody passing, whether it's healing. Transition very rarely comes when you're like, yes, come on, let's do this. It normally comes when I can't do this anymore, because it's that turning point, that tipping point that says something has to change. And that's what I feel this week. And it feels like it needs to be a sense of introspection, reflection, silence, grief. Yeah, I do feel a sense of grief. Even though the grief card isn't here, I feel a sense of grief. So overall, we have the Page of Swords, and what I really sense with this energy is still quite a... So I was going to say a young mentality about it, but actually feeling into that now, it feels like go beyond what it is we initially sense with the Page of Swords. Go beyond that first reaction to what we're thinking. Page of Swords is known to be a young mental energy. So what if we looked further? What if we saw the blue that he is wearing as communication? And that communication being an energy of necessary protection, of emotional maturity. What if we look at the two swords that he is holding out in front of him and the indecision that has caused that feeling of being uncertain? What if we look at the fact that he's holding them with pride, and we accept the notion that it can feel quite empowering to not know, that actually that may not be immaturity, that might be the most mature thing we can do, is to let go of the need to know. This week, really seeking beyond the obvious to the more sacred. You deserve better. The situation deserves better. Life deserves better than to be tarred with the obvious. Okay. On the Monday, we have the Two of Cups, and I do see a celebration here, but I always see it's not coming together. It's not quite coming together. This union, this collaboration, this, all aspects of ourselves, it's not quite coming together. There's a block there. Yeah, it's like they're trying to kiss each other, but they can't quite reach. The hands are tied apart. They're almost being pulled apart here by the Cancerian in the very bottom, by the Cancer in the very bottom, who's pinching. Can you see that? It's an amazing card. Pinching on the hearts. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, pinching on the heartstrings there. And it's almost tying their hands together, and they're not meeting. I hear the song Meet Me in the Middle. They're not meeting in the middle. And what's in the way? The sign of the feminine. I don't see this as being in the background. I don't see this as being a guiding light. I see the assumptions of the feminine. I see the understanding, the flow, the acceptance, the ability to receive the feminine in the heart being in the way of the flow that is evident there. And it actually looks like it's, even though you have the masculine and feminine in the cups, it looks like it's, I was going to say two female hands holding it then. No, I can see the masculine hand now. Really looking into where we may be unable to see the actions, the masculine that is there to help us, and our ability to receive that. Okay. On the Tuesday, we have the Ace of Cups. I'm not surprised to see that it's actually come back from, it's not about outside, it's about inside. What is going on for us on the Tuesday? On the Monday, we may start to feel as if we're unable to connect to the flow of messages, unable to connect to each other a bit. There's something not quite in the right here. There's something in the way here, and it is our ability to receive. It is our ability to nurture. It is our ability to listen, to pause, to be. And on the Tuesday, that comes up with the knowing that it's time to go into our heart space. Time to go into our heart space and feel what is actually going on there. And it does seem as if it's like this real depths. There's these real depths to go into. But actually, what I see around it is the blue ocean. We've already done the depths. We've already collected them. It's almost like it's that can be off-putting. This feeling of sheer love in our heart, this feeling of absolute depth of emotion and a fear of it. But recognizing it's us. Recognizing we are a drop in the ocean or an ocean in a drop. It's that saying, yeah? Recognizing we are our emotions. They're not too much. We have the ability to flow and to feel with them and to create with them and to unite with them. Feeling into that on the Tuesday. Recognizing the stories that may have made or helped us to feel as if we were unable to cope with who we are. The whole too muchness, not just outside but inside as well. Because on the Wednesday we can take that emotional energy and start to create with it in the King of Wands. So what do I see here? Yes, there's dragons. Yes, there's fire. It feels as if it's nothing new on the Wednesday. Like I'm not seeing anything new here. It's all really obvious. And it could be that's the new part. That real receptivity of deep, internal, spiritual knowing. That ability to look back and go, oh my God, that's why. Da, 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 da. The only thing I do see here is that his wand and his belt almost form the number 7. And it seems to be really standing out to me. And I think we do have the devil later on in the pack. Yes, we do have the devil later on in the pack. And the reason I say that is because it's almost like this here looks like horns. We can be really tempted to get caught up in the path of endurance in order to prove our strength. And avoid our own true light. Okay, so really looking at that on the Wednesday, when something is obvious, when it's not as out there, hard, difficult, enduring as we believed it to be, when it's easy, we can really struggle with that. The masculine notion can really struggle with that, and it's that this week to keep an eye on. Okay, our actions can be very simple and with ease and with grace and force that is divine and feminine. How do we feel about that? How do we feel about all the struggles beforehand? Yeah, how do we feel about the future that could come in as a result? When things are really, really, really easy. Because on the Thursday we have justice. What I notice with justice is that neither of them can look at each other. Neither of them can look at each other, and I had to really feel into that because I felt almost detached from the necessary balance that was there, and I really feel that in my heart. It feels sharp, it feels crinkly, it feels closed on the Thursday. In regards to the world, in regards to darkness and light, and ourselves, obviously being a reflection of ourselves, in regards to the stories that we carry being the defensive weapon that we feel that we need. And again, I don't know if you can see, but they're holding on to what looks like horns at the top. So you have the masculine almost stood within those horns. You have justice clinging to the horns, clinging to that my right, my way, my understanding, my actions, my intentions, my expectations. And what you can see is they're not even able to look at each other. The intention and expectation can't even look at each other. The ability to receive what it is we need in order to put the actions into place aren't working together, because it's so detached here, and it is because of a story that has become our own weapon, tool, defensiveness. I know that there has been, on a subconscious level, reasons that I haven't been able to aid my own healing. And I know it has to do with forgiveness. I know it has to do with belief in myself. I know it has to do with the many journeys that I've been on. And I know in my core that I know my body. I know in my core that I know what it needs, and I'm able to provide that. And there's doubt there. Of course there's doubt, even though I know. But when I feel into that, and that's what feels like key Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, when we feel into that truth and the anticipation of what would come if we didn't have these stories, we can really start to restore an equilibrium, a necessary equilibrium by the new moon. Is that 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, coming into the new moon. On the new moon in the UK, we have the Five of Swords, which is quite unusual, not the sort of card I would expect to see, and that feels very poignant on the Fridays. Not what we would expect to see, and that can make us doubt. Yeah, that can make us think, oh, maybe I'll seek out advice from someone else. Maybe I'll look elsewhere. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not feeling this correctly, and that can really wobble our mental health. Yeah, that can really wobble our own authentic certainty, okay, on the Friday. And it does feel as if it's necessary. It does feel as if there's still hidden aspects that we are yet to see. Again, as we go into the weekend, we do have the Devil card there. It does feel as if there's an unknown force guiding us, and that can be quite necessary on the Friday with the new moon. It does feel as if we're almost being tempted to bring in new things to make up another new routine and a new intention and a new pause. Take a moment to look at what you've already gained and what you actually want to take forward. You know, don't chuck the baby out with the bathwater on the Friday. Such an analogy, right? Terrible analogy. But don't throw it all away on the Friday. Really feel into what is actually going on for you. Mentally, what it is you actually want to take forward. And no matter how many stories there are, no matter how many narratives, no matter how many intentions or expectations, what is the common theme that runs through it all? You could say, I want to give up smoking, lose weight, get a good relationship, good job, on the new moon. What's the common theme under that? How does it feel? What do you want to feel? Allow that to be your guidance on the Friday, especially in those moments of wobble. What do you want to feel? Keep returning back to that. Take that forward as your connection. Because on the Saturday, I do feel an essence of, well, I actually felt like with my tea then that I was in a public house drinking, drowning my sorrows on the Saturday. That's how I felt. But we have the Knight of Wands and the Devil. So what am I seeing here? I'm seeing the two dragons left over. Two dragons alive from the King of Wands. I'm seeing more movement on the Saturday with whatever came up on the Wednesday. More opportunities, more chances to take what we know and put it into practice. And as a result, more doubt, more wobbles, more temptations not to. On the Devil card here, I'll just show you this. The Knight of Wands. All I really want to show you on the Knight of Wands is the fact that he's wearing a helmet, or that the helmet is there. He's not actually wearing it, it's there, and that protection of the mental mind is there if need be. But there's nothing in it. There's nothing in this helmet. There's nothing in this armor. There's nothing to it anymore. It's not as defensive as we might think it is. You know, people are seeing through it. People are taking off these masks. They're seeing through our masks. You know, this week having so many people say, but Kirsty, you don't come across like that. I know. I know, but I still feel anxious and I still feel nervous and I still believe that that's what everyone sees. That's what I see. Yeah, that's my almost defensiveness to be like, well, I'm not really sure. Actually, there are times when I am. Just like there are you, and yeah, really looking into why you are holding yourself back in those moments. Because in the Devil card, we do have here the fact that he is pulling the strings of the Fool. He's stopping that new beginning. He's manipulating it, these insecurities. Yeah, I mean, time-wise, the timer is horizontal. Nothing is going to change with time-wise. It's all part of the journey, but to be aware of it changes the game. To be aware of what's actually going on changes everything, because then we take responsibility. We might not be ready, that's okay, but at least it can be our decision. Anything else here? So he's actually got all of the elements as well. He's using all of the, he's got the Devil has got the puppet strings, but all of the elements as well linked to the Fool. Manipulating our emotions, our thoughts, our actions, our drive, really looking at what is controlling that on the weekend before we act out. Anything else there that I can see? I see the pentagram on the chest. I see the pentagram on the higher heart, and feeling into that wisdom there, feeling into that tapping on the higher heart is really going to help this week with anything that we feel, because we're being really encouraged to look at how it affects our immunity, how stress affects our immunity, how holding ourselves back affects our immunity, how not feeling into our needs and addressing our own needs affects our own immunity. Anything else there? The character is quite attractive, very well built, very fit, very healthy. We can get really caught up in what that looks like in our own life. We can get really caught up in our own body image, of how we're seen, of how healthy we are, of how attractive we are. And that can actually stop us from doing what we feel like doing. Really being aware of that on the Saturday, how that impacts our actions with the Knight of Wands. On the Sunday we have the Moon card, and what I see with this Moon card is the naked feminine. She's raw, she's sensual, she's basking in the glow of her own beauty. And when I say she, I do not mean females. I do not mean gender. What I mean is, this is me. This is who I am. This is how I need to be seen by myself. And there's great wisdom in there. So you have the... I've always seen this bird either side as Thoth, but you have that bird either side of wisdom and record keeping here, okay, being the key to life. What stories are stored in our body? What stories are helping us to express our beauty? What stories are stopping us? Yeah. It doesn't feel like I want to add anything else. The one thing I do notice, the two dogs, one has its mouth closed, one has its mouth open, both are wearing the symbolism as a chain between them of the moon. There is a time to act, there is a time to be, and this week overall that essence underneath it is about finding our flow. And where that flow is coming from. Where are we in our cycles? Where are we in our stages of creativity? If we can really recognize that, then that whole Two of Cups thing starts to merge back together. That whole heart-led coherence is what drives us forward. And we can really look at any balances that we require in our life as a result, so that we don't doubt our ability and that we can see our own light and we can allow that to guide us forward. And I really feel like... without being too crude, almost like my milk coming in. I really feel like a deep, and what happens there is the heart is opening up, right? There's an abundance, it's supply and demand. When we open our heart, we can give more freely, and when we give more freely, we open our heart. But really important that we take care of our body, obviously, but there is a great opportunity to provide great sustenance for any new ideas that we have, by really feeling into where we actually are in our own stages. Okay. Not fill in the gaps unnecessarily. I have that one overall. The Tower. So what I saw in my mind's eye was the snake eating its own tail, but I saw it from the story of Neverending Story. From the film, sorry, of Neverending Story, and the card that I've pulled here is the Tower. It is that needs to change. Okay, the story that we are narrating, you know, in the Neverending Story, my next door neighbour's heater's going off. In the Neverending Story, it was about the world of fantasy and imagination, and the realisation that that is so important. Seeking that out in everything that we create this week is going to be key, because we have the Three of Pentacles and the Star card here. what needs to change in the vision that we have for ourselves, so that we can address what it is we actually need, what it is we need to work on, who it is we need in order to achieve that. Underneath it all, always, the Hermit. That guidance of knowing that it is your light that's going to get you through the darkness ultimately, and that it's time to open up to that. Take care, have a wonderful week, and I shall see you soon. Take care.